Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to Obelisk Live. I'm Laura Vosper, Head of Experience at Obelisk, and today we have three guests, all from our Obelisk community, who are wellbeing professionals as well as lawyers, and they're taking their time today to share with us some of their advice, kind of from lawyers for lawyers, as we work our way through the lockdown. Amelia Yao is a financial services lawyer and trained counsellor. Julian Harris is an in-house counsel and trained coach, and Vrinda Sharma is in-house counsel and trained therapist.
Thank you very much. Let me give you a minute or two about who I am and what I do, first of all. I was remembering this morning that it's not that long ago, since just last month, that it was my 20th anniversary of qualifying as a lawyer. Which made me feel pretty old. So I've been in-house since 2002, and I've been a consultant since 2014. The biggest couple of stints I've had in my career to date have been working with Nike and with Sports Direct. And for the last almost 4 years, I've been doing a number of different roles at ABF, Associated British Foods, working for brands like Primark and Twinings. Similar to what Amelia said about why I decided to become a coach as well, although I've had plenty of good times and continue to do as a lawyer, there's always been a voice in my head saying, is this it? Is this really it? And becoming a coach is me following my passion of essentially helping people. I think that's when I'm at my best, that's what I'm doing. And if I could categorize my work as a coach, it would be helping people maximize their impact in the world. So coming on to the subject of today, when Laura originally asked me to speak in the webinar, my plan was to talk generally about resilience and some of the techniques we can use to become more resilient. Given the current situation, I thought it would be more useful to share something that was shared with me a couple of weeks ago. It's a change curve model developed by a US-based consultancy called ThinkShift. I found it really interesting. And it gave me clarity and an understanding of how the COVID crisis has affected me and maybe affecting my loved ones and my work colleagues. Now, one aspect of resilience is to be able to make sense of challenging circumstances. And for me, this model does exactly that. And that's why I wanted to share it. I'm going to talk through the model with you shortly. As Laura says, I haven't produced any slides, and I've kind of done that deliberately. Obelisk will make the pictorial representation of the model available after the webinar for those that wish to access it. But I recommend, if you can, taking notes as we go. I certainly was scribbling furiously when ThinkShift were telling me about the model. One thing I want to stress is try to listen for insight, not for information. I think that's really where the power is. If you can walk away from this with just one insight and then apply it in your everyday life, that's incredibly powerful. So the model is divided into 3 stages that we're all going through, and they are chaos, acceptance, and new normal. And by the way, we can move backwards as well as forwards through the phases. It's not a linear progression. We can be in the acceptance phase, for example, at one point in time, but there might be a setback in our professional or personal setback that takes us straight back into the chaos phase. It can be used as a guide of individuals, a guide as part of or maybe a broader family, and also managers and leaders. And I think it is not only is it valuable to understand what we're going through, if you're a manager and leader, if you can predict, you can see from others as we're going through the journey, you'll know how to accelerate your own mindset and how to help others through to the new normal quicker. So the basic premise of the model is that everybody at an individual level will go through each of these three phases that I'm going to be describing. Each team will be doing the same, and each company as well. And of course, it's highly unlikely that everyone will be at the same stage at the same time. And so the consequences of acting towards someone in a certain way when that person is in a different phase to you can be very damaging. So the model is really helpful for figuring out where you are as an individual, teammates are, your family members, your clients, your customers, and an understanding of how to do your behaviors fit where the people you are, so you can help them come through the process of change as quickly as possible. The first of the three phases is the chaos. And Amelia's described very well a lot of what is happening to us during phase. Essentially, it feels like our life has been turned down. It's confusion, and it's hard to on safety, our physical safety, emotional safety, and our financial safety. Well, both for ourselves and for our loved ones. That's really what we're focusing on. We're worrying about ourselves and our loved ones and really doing only what we need to do to ensure that safety. What that feels like is a massive boost of energy as the adrenaline kicks in. It's a temporary boost, but it's a boost nevertheless. For teams, what this all means is that the focus is on doing basic stuff, basics. Teams are operating like us as from fear. It only needs to be done. But at the same time, and I've had this myself, people thinking, am I doing enough? I've worried about how much I'm doing compared to some of the others in the team. And it's made me feel a little bit guilty if I'm pulling my weight. But at the time, I don't want to do more because I feel scared. And I can't really focus on it any more than I'm actually doing. If you're a manager, there's a temptation to overmanage. Managers are also stressed and scared. And the distinction between really good managers and poor managers at this time will be stark. The poor, I think, will create more action, more work, more noise, and more stress. One of my favorite coaches, Rich Litvin, talks often about slowing down to speed up. The faster we react, the more likely it is mistakes are made that will take time to rectify later. It is pretty counterintuitive, I think, but chaos phase is really the time to slow down so that the foundations are in place to allow you to fly later on. Because in this phase it's all about safety, what we need most, especially from our leaders is, and our loved ones, of course, is assurance that it's all going okay. So we need to think about how to communicate with others empathetically, demonstrating that we understand what they're going through, what their families are going through, trying to allay their fears as much as we can. A few weeks ago, I felt a kind of thing. I think that's characteristic of the acceptance. Thinking went something along the lines of, oh, blimey, I thought this was only going to last a few weeks, but it looks like it's going to be several months now. And the adrenaline that fueled all the action and energy in the chaos phase, and it's been replaced with a feeling of heaviness and frustration. So if, like me, you're feeling like I'm low on energy, like you're low on energy, and everything is much better, that's absolutely okay. It's completely normal. We may also be feeling more guilt that we're not doing enough, or that we're not spending more time with our family, or that we're spending too much time with family and not enough time working. Or if, like me, if we have a blessed moment for ourselves from time to time, guilt that we're not spending the time with our family or on work. All of that is also completely normal as part of the acceptance phase. We also have to face the realization that we're not going to have that physical contact with our family and friends for a long time yet. Something, again, that Amelia touched on beautifully. And that's tough to take. It's tough to endure. As humans, we're hardwired to need that human interaction. So if you're feeling down or sad or lethargic, again, it's normal for this phase, and it's important to recognize that these feelings are okay. Managers will tend to get frustrated during the acceptance phase because it's just harder to get things done. If you're a manager or a leader, understanding that productivity levels are naturally lower is important. But at the same time, I think it's important to ask yourself, what are the right activities for my team to be doing at this stage? In the acceptance phase, as I've said, teams and individuals in teams don't have the energy that they did in the chaos phase. So we can't do as much. And with that in mind, leaders should be asking, let's not waste energy on stuff that we really don't need to do right now. And instead, let's focus on doing a few things really, really well. For all of us, the acceptance phase is the time to take stock and to evaluate what our priorities are for the medium term. What lessons do we want to learn from the crisis? What are the values that we hold most dear? What do we want to do less of or more of when life returns to normal? What structure do we want our daily lives to take? And what are the routines we need to start embedding now? For me, one of the things I valued most of all in the last few weeks is the simplicity of the way I'm living my life. I think there's a joy in that simplicity. And I want to hold on to that as much as I can once this is all over. I'm not sure I'm good at that yet, but I am trying to use this time to figure that out. So once the acceptance phase is over, we go into what ThinkShift calls the new normal. And the new full of hope, like there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it's also the phase where we have to be careful, because after so many months going from chaos to acceptance and the roller coaster of emotion and energy, it can also be a struggle to get back into it. So we need to bear that in mind. We'll suddenly have different stresses from those that we have now. After months of working from home, we might have to battle the daily commute again, for example. I mean, for me, I don't have that longer commutes, but the thought of having to get on the tube again doesn't fill me with happiness. For those of us that work in offices, the distractions and dramas and office politics that we've all forgotten about working from home will come back again into our lives. New normal will also require loads of energy. As businesses recover quickly, and the pace will feel so much quicker compared to acceptance. Another reason is that teams will find themselves and resourced as a result of all the cutbacks that are going on right now. Companies may have laid off some people. There will probably be a lot of consolidation, reorganization, restructuring, all of which is going to cause a huge amount of stress. According to ThinkShift, anytime a team member changes, it adds 73% more stress in. So that's another element we're going to have to deal with as we start working normal. So all of that is another reason to create the routines and the structures now, or now for me personally, in the acceptance phase, so that we come out stronger and we're totally ready to get back into it. If we don't, it's going to be so much more difficult at the pace that these will need us to go at. For leaders, it's really a time, the new normal is a time to create, to innovate, to push boundaries. The market will have changed dramatically, and opportunities will present themselves for growth. The barriers to entry into markets will have come down, and we should expect to see a raft of startups challenging the established companies, or certainly those that have survived the crisis. We also have to recognize that things will never be the same again. So we have to look forward, not be nostalgic to the way things were prior to the pandemic. I'm doing some legal work for Primark at the moment, and it's fascinating to watch as they think about what the retail experience will look like on a country-by-country basis as the world slowly starts to open up again. As consumers, we all want to go back to the shops, to the cafes, restaurants, and cinemas. But now we have a totally different level of thinking where those activities are concerned, really focused on personal safety as much as entertainment and being social. So the key things to do for the new normal really is to get into high gear, but also ensuring at the same time we look after ourselves so that we can maintain the pace that will be needed. So just to round things up, I've got 5 points as a summary. One is the chaos phase. That's characterized by uncertainty and where our primary need is safety. Next, it's the acceptance phase, where the predominant feeling is one of frustration and in which our energy levels will be low. The last phase is the new normal, which will be extremely busy and full of opportunity, and in which we're going to need a lot of energy. Individuals, remember, will be in different phases, and we can move backwards as well as forwards through this. And lastly, but not least, I think this is the key takeaway. We need to be asking ourselves, where are the other people in our life? Which phase are they in? And then we need to match our response to where the other person's at, so we come across in the way they need us to be in that moment. Thank you.
Now, we are tight for time. I haven't seen any questions coming in from our guests, but what I would like to just end with, if I may, is a question for myself, which I'd just like to hear thoughts from each of you, just briefly on, which is, as we approach the sort of new normal, do you think, having been through this experience, we are going to be thinking differently as a profession, as a community, as individuals, about well-being and how important it is to be purposeful with considering our well-being? Julian, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm all philosophical on us right now, and I do sometimes wonder in my philosophical moments, this whole crisis, like Earth, the way of telling us all to stop, to slow down, to reflect and evaluate on the way we live our lives, the way especially the way we relate to other people. I think prior to the crisis, the world seemed polarized politically and socially, and I do get the feeling that's changed. And so as an individual, I mean, I kind of touched on it when I was talking before about the change model. I am thinking about the way I live, what is dearest to me, and can change in order to give those things more focus and more meaning.
Thank you. And I think on that note, thinking about the future and opportunities and finding a note of positivity, I think we'll close there for today. Amelia, Julian, Verinda, thank you so much for taking your time today to share your advice and insights. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today to listen in, and I hope everybody can stay safe and well.